I'm delighted to welcome Professor Mitchel Goldman to the Ageless by Rescu podcast. Professor Goldman, you're joining us from San Diego today, and another great stem cell pioneer, Dr. Cohen, Stephen Cohen, who's also appeared on the Ageless by Rescu podcast, is a fellow city mate of yours.
Yeah, Steve is right down the block from me. So I do the dermatology and cosmetic lasers, and Steve does the plastic surgery.
And what an exciting space you're both working on. Tell me how you became involved with CALECIM, and really you're the godfather of stem cell topical treatment, really.
You know, it all goes back to literally like 1988 when I was doing studies on trying to treat ulcers in the leg that come from people with what's called venous insufficiency or bad veins. And these patients would get ulcers. And so there was a company in San Diego called Advanced Tissue Sciences, and they were making a product that actually was a type of a stem cell from something called a fibroblast. And instead of putting the cells on the ulcers, we were putting the growth media. So those are the hundreds of different compounds that these little fibroblasts make. And we were putting it on these stasis ulcers, and it worked okay. But what we noticed is that the skin around the ulcers looked really, really good. So my partner, Richard Fitzpatrick, and I were developing a skincare company called Skin Medica. And we took that growth media and we basically packaged it in what as elegant as we could do in a product called TNS. And that was literally the very first growth factor skincare product. And it really took off and is still in use, but now we have many other types of growth factor serums and creams that we can use that are probably a little bit better.
I think it's really an exciting point in skincare and cosmetology that we are able to borrow from medical science to bring forward some really efficacious ingredients and techniques. And you're on the board of the CALECIM, and you are working with a brand that is actually using the umbilical cord of the red deer to source these growth factors. Tell us about the sourcing, because I know that for a lot of people, one of the first hurdles about stem cell therapy and growth factors is the ethical background and sourcing procedures, and also just understanding what benefit it has on human skin.
Yeah. So first of all, it's very important to know that there's no cells whatsoever in the creams or the serums. It's all what's called the growth media, which has what the cells are producing, which is something called cytokines. And those are the things that rejuvenate your skin. So even when we use the very first growth factors, we actually took those cells from discarded foreskin, and they were fibroblasts. And then a number of companies said, oh, we don't want to do something like that. So they came up with plant-derived stem cells from like
That's right, the ancient green apples. That was a huge component.
Yeah,
and I have
from
to
some
say
really
that
old apple tree.
If I was going to put a growth factor on my face, I probably would go the green apple instead of the foreskin.
I know, but the problem is you're not a plant. And I'm not a plant. And so the growth factors that are in these plants, you know, they're wonderful if you were a plant, but they really don't do that much. But they sound really good. And like people go, oh, I would love to put this ancient apple tree, which, you know, which has wonderful apples. But, you know, it's great for an apple tree. So let's go to the CALECIM product. So what the team in Singapore at Cell Research Corporation was doing is they were trying to figure out what are the best types of stem cells, which are the ones that make the most, the best types of growth factors to rejuvenate. And they found out that it was the umbilical cord lining. Whether it be a human or a pig or anything, that was an umbilical cord lining gave us the best number of stem cells with the best production and the best growth factors. So then the company tried to figure out, okay, where are we going to source this from? And it turns out there's a herd of red deer in New Zealand where they harvest the hair from their antlers as an aphrodisiac for Chinese people. And
Wow.
why, who knows? But Chinese people think that the hair from the antlers of this red deer is an aphrodisiac. So this red deer is actually very pure, no diseases whatsoever. And it actually has a homology. So it's about 99% the same as humans.
Wow.
So what they do is basically when the mommy deers have a baby deer, usually the mommy deer will eat the placenta of the deer. And so what we do is we let the mommy deer give birth to the baby deer, and then we just snip off the umbilical cord, and the mommy deer can still eat the placenta and everything's wonderful, but we take the umbilical cord. So both mother and baby deers do great. No one even misses the umbilical cord. And then we take that umbilical cord, and that's how we make this stem cell mixture, and then what we do is we culture out those cells, and we take just the very pure growth medium, or what the cells are growing in. That's what has the magic. That's what has the cytokine mixture. And that's what we put in to the CALECIM skincare products.
What are growth factors? Just a Science 101 on growth factors from you, please, Professor Goldman.
Yeah, well, our body contains lots of different cells, and the cells just sit there until they're told to do something. And so the cells in our skin and under the skin, called the dermis, which is where a cell called a fibroblast lives, and this is a cell that makes collagen and elastic fibers, it has to be sort of told what to do. And as these cells become older, they sort of get tired, and they sort of don't know what to do anymore. And so if you're signaling them with these growth factors, you literally turn them on, you get them all excited, and they make more collagen and elastic fibers and other rejuvenating properties like hyaluronic acid, and they stimulate epidermal cells to grow younger. And that's what the growth factors do. Now, I wish it was like one growth factor that worked, but it isn't. I've been a doctor now for 40 years, and every year we're learning about new growth factors. And there probably are hundreds, if not thousands, of different types of growth factors. And it's the mixture that causes our body to literally rejuvenate. Now, I want to add here that in the recent literature and the recent lay press, people are talking about something called exosomes, and that's like a real buzzword. And exosomes are just the same growth factors, but they're sort of packaged in a little package. Whether that package does anything, nobody knows, but it's essentially the same kind of growth factors. But again, what makes CALECIM so different? It's the mesenchymal umbilical cord lining stem cell growth media. That's a lot that I just said, but that turns out to be the best. It's the one that will rejuvenate cells the most because it comes from literally fetal tissue. What grows people, whether it's a person or a red deer or something else, it's basically the cells that are causing that new growth to occur. And that's what we use.
Professor Goldman, why did you become involved with a brand such as CALECIM? Because you are a professor, you're an academic, as well as a practicing dermatologist. It's not often that someone of your stature will get involved with a brand. I'm curious as to why you decided to join up with CALECIM.
Well, I have been doing research on skincare products and rejuvenation for the last 35 years. And I didn't know anything about this company in Singapore called Cell Research Corp that makes CALECIM. They came to me and they said they've read my research and would I be interested? And I said, why? Just like you told me why. And they basically said that they really found the magic bullet. They found the way to take mesenchymal stem cells from umbilical cord lining and make a growth factor media that's better than what I had done with that other company called Skin Medica. And I found their research incredibly intriguing, and so intriguing that I asked for more and more information. And I said, you know, guys, you're on the right track. And so how could an academic not join one of the leading companies in stem cell research? I had to.
Do you find that where we're going with skincare technology is moving fast enough, given the science that is available to us? Are you excited about the pace and progress, or are you dismayed that people are still, relying on what is essentially an oil and water formulation for so many products?
It's an interesting question. I'm 67 years old, so I want skincare companies to be the best that they can be, because I still
Right
feel
now, so that you can use it too.
yeah, and which I do, but I still feel like I'm 20, and so many of my patients in their 40s and 50s, they still feel so young, and my younger patients in their 30s don't want to look like their grandparents. And so, starting on a product that's going to help rejuvenate your skin, because let's face it, our skin really starts to go downhill after the age of around 25. And so that's why I encourage younger people like my daughters who are 36 and 39, who use these products, and then my wife who's 60, and me who's 67. We use the products, and I have patients in their 80s using the products. Everyone wants to look as good as they feel.
I'm going to ask you, the range is quite edited, which I love. Is there a hero product, but in your opinion, from the professional collection that you think everyone should incorporate into their skincare routine, whether or not they're using the entire CALECIM range, or if they just want to discover the, as you said, magic bullet?
Yeah, well, another great question. I basically published 2 research studies to try to answer that question. And so in my studies, we studied 2 things. One, just a regular person just using a skincare product, how better is their skin after using it for 4 weeks. And that was with what I think are the hero products, which is the professional serum and the multi-action cream.
I've used the
And
multi-action cream, and I've used it on my face, but I've also used it on a post-surgical scar. And I was telling you how efficacious I found it, and you laughed at me and you said, I only look at research and double-blind experiments. I don't care about your one-off. But
yeah, but it's pretty smart what you did, because the second study that I did was on patients that had what's called a laser resurfacing. And that's when we laser off the top of the skin. We punch little holes into the dermis to stimulate collagen production. And I use the CALECIM, again, the professional serum and the multi-action cream after that procedure, testing it against a wide variety of other creams. And the CALECIM system, the professional and the multi-action, not only had patients heal more quickly, but with less adverse effects, like less redness, less pigmentation. And then the best part is, when we looked at our patients 2 and 3 months later, the patients that were on the CALECIM system did better than the patients that were on our normal types of systems. And so it just proves that not only will the system work on intact skin, but it would work, I think, even better post-laser.
so if you're talking about the serum, which you said you're particularly excited about, let's talk about that as the hero product. What are some of the things that you can see as part of an at-home care? It is a professional serum, but can you incorporate it into your at-home treatment routine? And what can you expect to see at 1 month, at 2 months, ongoing?
Yeah, well, certainly what I advise my patients is, after they wash their skin, and truly, I don't care how someone washes their skin, they put a few drops of the pink serum, the professional serum, on and rub it in. And then whenever they want to use on top of it, if they want to use moisturizers, if they want to use different types of creams, if they, of course, want to end with sunscreen or a sunscreen makeup.
Spoken
That's
as
the
a true
best.
dermatologist.
Well, we see a lot of skin cancer in San Diego, as you do in Australia. But we do that in the morning, and in the evening, the same routine, but of course without the sunscreen. And so that's how I advise my patients to use it. And it just takes a few drops to cover the face. So it's
And what
very
can you
cost
expect to
effective.
see after, you talked about the post-laser treatment, but as part of at-home care, what would be some of the things that are better, unique, more
Yeah.
advanced by using something that's got the growth factors like CALECIM?
So what our published clinical study found is that patients that were using the CALECIM had a 30% improvement in fine lines and wrinkles, pigmentation, redness, and it felt good. No one got allergic reactions to it. There was no irritation. So it's pretty effective.
Fantastic. And let me ask you, before I introduce another guest on this show from CALECIM, if you were to, I guess, project forward into skincare science, what do you think the consumer is really looking for? And what do you think is missing in the industry that you hope to see in your lifetime?
Wow. Really good. Another really, really good question. What I like to do with my patients, and I think what's missing, is we're never going to have like magic in a bottle. But what I have my patients do is to use incredible products like CALECIM with different types of laser procedures. And so since I'm a real big laser kind of guy, I think we're getting more advanced in skin tightening procedures. We're getting more advanced in our lasering, which sort of, again, kicks your little fibroblasts into high gear to rejuvenate them, and also lasers to help with pigmentation. And then if we're using a skincare product, that's going to accentuate or enhance the results of our laser procedures. So skin tightening is what every man and woman wants, making their skin a little clearer complexion with less irregular pigmentation, and also decreasing the redness. I think those are the most important things that we can ask for.
Thank you so much, Professor Goldman, and wonderful to have you here from San Diego. I so appreciate it. And I'd like to now introduce you to Ross Johnstone, who is the Global Head of Education and Training from CALECIM. And I've invited Ross to join us as well, because I want to get down into the nitty-gritty of some product-related questions. Welcome, Ross.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Bahar. Thank you.
So tell me about your background in skincare science and what attracted you to be part of the CALECIM story, because it is really a unique skincare treatment company.
Yeah, absolutely. So my kind of background and kind of what led into me getting into CALECIM Professional was essentially coming from an education background. So I had spent my previous 5 years working in education within various different fields. So whether that was working directly with adults, young individuals, just working in the field of education, and whether that was to do with science, politics, history, etc., it was just essentially educating individuals. And so when I spoke with some of the guys at CALECIM, one of the key things they wanted to get across was making sure that we brought on board somebody that was going to be able to educate not just our key doctors, but also to ensure that consumers and everybody that sort of comes into touch with CALECIM is fully able to understand how everything works.
Because it's such a complex part of the skincare. You can always sell hope in a jar, which we were talking about before with Professor Goldman. We're all reaching for that magical bullet, again, as Professor Goldman mentioned. But how was CALECIM developed?
Yeah, so the backstory behind CALECIM kind of feeds in from what Professor Goldman was talking about earlier with Cell Research. So Cell Research Corporation is our parent company, right? CALECIM Professional is a wholly owned subsidiary. of cell research. And when they were looking into the application of essentially stem cell technology for wound healing and other different applications, when they stumbled across this umbilical cord lining sort of abundance of stem cells, what they essentially were doing was looking at utilizing that technology for potential wound healing. And specifically, they were looking into the treatment of diabetic foot ulcers, burn patient victims, and things like that.
So that's the history of the brand research was actually
yeah. So that's where it all kind of started off, right? That's where we originally we were just a research company, just seeing what kind of stem cell technology we could find. And then when we saw the application of this stuff for wound healing, there's a particular story that I always share about this, right? So there was this lady, and she worked in Vietnam, in Hoi An, I believe. She was in her mid-60s. She had a diabetic foot ulcer that covered a large portion of her foot. And usually the kind of last resort that we lead to for diabetic foot ulcers is potentially amputation. And so way back in the mid-2000s, they found this lady going to and from work. She worked in this fruit and vegetable market. How she did it, I have no idea, with this massive foot ulcer on her. And we gave her a version of the professional serum. Now, not the serum itself, that's very different because that's for cosmetic purposes, but we used our technology to have her try it out and just apply it topically and see what kind of results came back. And then after 106 days, that wound completely healed up. And it was off the back of that we were like, wow, this stuff is doing amazing for wound healing. How can we fund further research? And that's kind of where CALECIM was born out of, was the idea that let's take this technology, use that technology for post-procedure care, like lasers, reducing downtime and things like that. And then let's use that to fund further research into the diabetic foot ulcer side of things. So we're also looking at the treatment of Parkinson's, lupus, age-related macular degeneration, lots of other conditions. And that's kind of where CALECIM was born out of, was to help kind of push and drive that research. And I think that's a really powerful message to share about CALECIM, is that CALECIM isn't the end goal. The end goal is to get this research through to the point that we're able to create a drug or technology that can help to, at the very least, make people's lives that little bit easier.
So talk us through the range that is available on the market, and a little bit about each product, because I always find that when people are selecting products, they're always searching to treat a concern. They don't really care about the marketing promises. If I have pigmentation, I want to treat pigmentation. If I have rosacea or redness, I want to treat that. And so I would love you, as you introduce each product, to also tie back with what concerns that particular product could potentially address.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we've already kind of covered the serum mainly, so we can kind of, I can just briefly explain. So that is an 80% concentration of our active ingredient. It's primarily used for post-procedure care. So actually what a lot of people might do is, if they have an at-home device, they like to do a bit of derma rolling at home, and they might use the serum as part of that. So you apply it just immediately after doing some kind of an at-home.
Oh, that would be such a great way to do it, with a derma roller. You were right.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think
you've inspired me to get out my derma roller.
Well, it's a big thing now, right? Lots of people are getting their at-home devices and trying things out. And so the serum would work well with that. But it also, as Professor Goldman was saying, works excellently as an at-home skin booster, as your base layer for everything else, to just basically provide that base layer for your routine. So that we've already covered the majority of that serum. In terms of the other products, so the multi-action cream that we briefly mentioned, this is a 50% concentration of the active ingredient.
I can speak with some authority on my love.
Please do.
Please
do.
I found, I'm 48 and my skin has changed from being oily to normal to now more dehydrated and dry. And I have found this to be such, as you were saying before, so comfortable to use, but also a pleasure to use. And sometimes with cosmeceuticals, the pleasure aspect is missing. And I always think, if you don't use it, you don't get the results. And it's harder to use something that doesn't feel luxurious and a pleasure to use. So it's nice to have something that is so active, so concentrated, so cosmeceutical, which is also a pleasure to use. So well done.
Absolutely. Well, that's always awesome to hear that from people. But as Professor Gold mentioned, it is kind of seen as the hero product in amongst the home maintenance regimen. side of things. But essentially, one of the reasons why people like the multi-action cream so much is because it's got this transepidermal delivery system built into it. It uses liposome technology to basically encapsulate fat cells and then absorb beyond just the epidermis into the dermal layer. But essentially what this product is a targeted corrective treatment product, okay? And it's basically targeting anybody who is showing significant signs of aging. And the significant signs of aging list can go on and on and on and on. But that's the key message.
It goes on and on and on and on.
It goes on and on. We can go through so many ways as to how it can sort of define itself or show itself, but that's the main target, is any skin that is showing significant signs of aging. There's no scent that's been added to the product as well, because we don't want to take away from the efficacy by adding in unnecessary preservatives, scents, or anything like that. We just want it to work as a treatment product, which is what it's designed for, essentially. So that's the multi-action cream. Then the restorative hydration cream. 40% concentration of the active ingredient. This is our hydrating moisturizer, and essentially is targeted for individuals that are showing any signs of dehydration and are showing any signs of prematurely aging as well. It does have a scent to it, which is a grapefruit extract. So it does have that nice smell for people that maybe do have a sensitive nose and they want something to smell nice as they apply it. But essentially what we're looking for here is just to provide that additional moisture, as it's got additional hyaluronic acid, which is secreted from the stem cell proteins. It's also got in there tocopherol, which basically creates a barrier to prevent any kind of transepidermal water loss from occurring. So that's the restorative hydration. Then you've got the recovery night complex, and the recovery night complex is our overnight mask. So the way that this is actually a dual purpose one, it's an interesting one. So the way that this one really works is that you essentially can use it for post-procedure care. So you can use it to basically apply overnight, as a sort of gel mask, just to provide that cooling effect. But it is also just used as a standard at-home mask for people to have as well. So let's say, you know, in Australia, you've been out on the beach all day. On a Sunday, you can then put that mask on, it'll provide that cooling, hydrating effect. Same if you're going skiing, winter skiing and things like that, people love using it for that afterwards as well. And then the next one is the pigment solution. So the pigment solution.
Pigment is such a big issue in Australia. Melasma, pigment, scarring.
Yeah, absolutely. It honestly is. So the way this came about was basically people using our products. They were using our creams and noticing after extensive usage that they were getting a reduction of pigmentation. And so we went back into the lab and then we essentially cultured our active ingredient to highlight certain key growth factors and cytokines that were helping to improve pigmentation. Most clearly, we were looking at reducing inflammation and improving the skin repair process, which are two major causes of pigmentation naturally. Incredible. So they're the differentiating factors, is the cytokines and growth factors addressing inflammation and addressing the skin repair process.
And you have a hair product as well.
Yeah, this one's super exciting. So the advanced hair system is, again, people using the serum. People love using the serum all around the world, and people use it in lots of different ways. And a few doctors started using it for hair loss treatments. And so again, we were like, what are these results we're getting? This is incredible. Go into the lab, identify some key growth factors and cytokines that improve hair growth, whether it's through increasing the active stage of the hair growth, anagen, reducing the resting and transition phase, which is cassiogen and telogen, or it could also be increasing the production of dermal papilla cells, which control hair growth, and always with CALECIM, reducing inflammation within the scalp as well, to ensure that we get the desired effect and more that we're looking for with hair growth.
Oh, this is so incredible. And I just want to reiterate, all of these products that you've talked about are available in Australia as at-home treatment, except for the hair, which is a professional.
Yeah, we're looking into the hair for at home, but for now it's a brand new product, so it's just using in clinic.
And if I was addicted to another skincare brand, am I able to incorporate CALECIM into an existing skincare routine? Because that's always what I get asked. But I really want to try this, but I'm using this as well. Is there any contraindication of using CALECIM, which is so active and so unique, with other skincare?
Yeah, absolutely. It's totally fine to use with other brands. It's absolutely fine to do so. The one thing I will say around it, the multi-action cream. What a lot of people find is that these days, there's the amount of layering that you have to do is, 10, 15, 20 different things that you're putting on. Multi-action cream, you can cut out a lot of the different things you might have in your cabinet, your hyaluronic acid serums, your XYZs that can clog things up, because the multi-action cream has those incredible amounts of stem
as the
cell
name
proteins
says, multi-action
in there. Exactly. So that's something that I would say you can cut other things out.
Sorry to interrupt you. If we were layering, it would be the serum would be great. And then we would use the multi-action cream. And then the other specific treatment products that you mentioned, like pigmentation, you would use that and the night cream alternatively in the evening?
So this is the pigment solution. You would apply it morning and night, and you would apply it after the serum, but before the multi-action cream.
Got it.
Okay. Multi-action cream morning and night, recovery night complex. That's something you would just put on at the end of the night on top of everything else to hold it all in place.
Now, if you are not excited about growth factors and stem cell research and how it applies to rejuvenation at a cellular level, I don't know what will excite you, but I want to thank both Professor Goldman and Ross Johnstone so much. And thank you to CALECIM for having two wonderful global experts join the Ageless by Rescu podcast. Thank you for being on the show.
No problem. Thank you so much.
Pleasure being here.
Absolutely.
It was wonderful to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All the best. Take care.
Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please share and rate this episode. I'd love that.